Welcome to part one of my Cutflower Garden Series, where I show you how you can grow your own cut flowers in a smaller scale as a home gardener. So this series is really made for everyone who always wanted to deck their own home out with homegrown flower bouquets. So that's what I show you in this series. We'll walk you through what my space are, why I chose to set it up the way I did, why it's helpful for cut flower gardening. And and then we'll get it set up today. And in the next video, I'll probably show you how to plant it out. So let's get started. I'm Steffi. I'm a home gardener here in Attleboro, Massachusetts, is Zone 6, and I just love to take you along for the ride. So welcome to my channel. So in this garden series, I want to capture what I've done in terms of setup to give you an idea of how you could design your own cut flower garden. I've also linked a video here where you can see what your first cut flower garden layout could be if you're a true beginner and just want to get started with cut flowers. So it helps you to design your first cut flower garden. And the cool thing is everything what is in this video as plants you can grow and seed outside, so you don't have to have seedlings for that. So it's still plenty time to do that. Anyway, I've linked that for you here, but my plan is really to show you the setup, how to plant it out, the care I do for my cut flower garden throughout the garden season, and then of course the fun part, cutting the flowers, arranging them, and see how the season progresses. So I might do a couple of updates for this one as well. So that's how far I have it planned out in my head. If you have any requests or want to see any particular area in that regard, just let me know below in the comments, and I'm happy to incorporate that in the end. I'm making those videos for you, right? So let's talk a little bit about my setup here. So we have here two large L's which are surrounding my garden here, which are the ones in which I grow cut flowers. Why did I choose that kind of setup? Is they are 3 feet deep, which is, some could say, rather skinny, but it's the distance from where I can reach into the cut flowers from both sides easily without like reaching in deeply, bending over hard. So this is just something for my comfort level. With 3 feet deep, I can also I can add most plants in like a row of 3 or maybe even like 5, depending on what the distance is, how you can plant them, and you have still a lot of good options to reach into it. I also choose the to raise the area a little bit, which means I have those beautiful corrugated metal edging, which I used to create those beds. This was a reason for 2 things. First, the optics, I gotta say, because I really love that look and really wanted to have like a distinct corner through the garden. But it also helps with controlling the soil a little bit more, because I controlled what went into it. It heats up faster in this season, which means my soil is typically a few degrees warmer than anyone who grows in ground, which just gives you a little bit of head start, especially in the dahlia department. And in the end, it also helps to suppress weed pressure, so nothing can grow in like straight from any kind of border. So that was helpful too. Nevertheless, still plenty weeds, don't you worry. So you got to consider the staking as well for your cut flowers, because they grow tall, and you always need to keep in mind what is the mature size of the plants eventually and how you can support those ones. And for that reason, I have here T-posts in my bed. And if you're wondering what those little turned over ceramic pots are, those are for eye protection. So when I reach into it, that I'm not accidentally poking my eyes out. So safety first. Once you have the supports in, you want to consider what kind of netting you use. We'll see that later, what netting I'll use, and I have everything as usual linked in the description below. But what I typically do is the bottom support. So for the first 18 inches, I have some horizontal netting, and I'm not using Horton over netting. I don't like it. It didn't perform well for me. So I have some other netting which works really, really great, and it's more rigid for my use case. But I have a layer of netting over here, and then typically once they get taller, I don't do 2 layers of netting, because I think that's too much of a pain from the moment the plants are taller than this. But I basically corral them with twine around the T-post. That has worked really, really well for me. You see, we have mostly T-posts on the outside and every once in a while one in the inside, so we can literally create a spider web of trellises around it if we need to. And then the last part you want to consider and think about is the irrigation. I have here a very flexible irrigation system. As you can see here, I have like 3 main supply lines throughout my beds, and every supply line has those adjustable emitters, which are 360 emitters, which can spray nicely around it. So the benefit is if I have just portions of this bed planted out, I can close those emitters, which are not in use, to save me the water. So I don't need to water anything what doesn't need to have water right now. And it also helps if you have like different flowers or different kind of flowers planted in different areas of the bed, which have different water requirements. So some might need more than others. And that is really a flexible way of accommodating for that. And if you want to learn about my irrigation system in more detail, I can link last year's irrigation video with all details below in the description as well. All right, let's get our bed here ready so we can plant it out in a week or 2 from now. So let's talk netting for a little moment here. As you can see here, I have already some plants growing, and that was my downfall with the netting last year because I missed my time window, didn't put the netting down, and they were all flippy floppy, and I couldn't put netting around them anymore because if they grow too big, it's really, I just say it's not impossible, but it's impossible for my patience level to get them through the grids to give them the support they need. So this year, I have vowed to be better because that was one of the things which really annoyed me last year. So what netting do I use? I mentioned already, I tried Hortonova netting for horizontal netting. Didn't work for me at all. That broke so fast, and I tried it from like 2 sources. It was just a cheap source off of Amazon. So it's actually from one of the known seed and equipment providers here. But what I really, had that bad of an experience that I didn't want to use it anymore, so I was looking for other netting. And the one which I've used now for the 3rd year in a row is from Vivosun, their trellis netting. So this is more of an, it's called heavy duty polyester net, which is really tough and really holds well. I use the T-posts for getting it in and holding up. But what we do today is just getting it on the ground. So for the few plants I have already here, we will weasel it through, but then I'll leave it on the ground until the plants are starting to grow a little bit taller. And then we just lift it up to the height we want it. Typically I have it like on an 18-inch level eventually, but it's easier to raise it up later than putting it on later. So what I do is I'll put it on the ground, leave it on the ground. That also doubles then later as, let's just say, planting aid or spacing aid where you want to plant those plants, because the squares which this mesh has is 6 inches, so it really helps to space out the plants nicely. The only downside with that net from my perspective is that it's actually 5 feet long and not 3 how I need it to be, so I always cut the sides off, but I'm not sure if I have the patience for that today. So, but we'll put it definitely on the ground, lay it out, and leave it there. So this is how it looks, and I choose typically one side to be flush and then the other one to be cut, because you don't want to cut on both ends, right? And usually I cut the outside line because it's easier than my inside line here. So I'll just try to put that over. And that's the issue when you have plants already to get them through. But it's a lot easier in this size than later, trust me. That is my pretty yarrow here. I'm super excited that nobody ate it yet, because last year the bunnies went for it. It also doesn't help that it has hooks everywhere. Yeah, so careful where you have already plants. I'm also aiming to have a little bit of tension on it. So sometimes it's better to do it step by step to get the tension right. Yeah, so something like that. It is a job which requires some fiddling and patience, which are both not my fortunes, but it has to be done. Just like wiggling is usually getting it off the plants. Then you see it starts to get shape, so I will drag it to this level and then I will just lift it down one by one. And then you make adjustments as you go. Just have a little bit more and better tension on it. Too much tension won't help, but a little goes a long way. Great, so here you can see I left it on the side where I have the plants already a little bit higher, because there's no point in putting that down when they're already almost on the height to grow through it. So I left it there, but then I transitioned here where we have no plants to a lower one. I don't like to keep it up because it's like really annoying when you start to like grab through it. So I rather have it really sitting on the soil level. And then I can use the squares also to guide my planting. It usually works really, really well. And then we just lift it up once the plants start growing and getting bigger. And all of that here is zinnias. So, and a little bit of cosmos and a little bit of basil there. So all of that will need support eventually. So the corners are always like a little bit wonky. I'll probably have another one just going in as a triangle over this one, just this way. I don't have time to do that today, but we'll have that in place for the next video when we start out planting those plants. But yeah, that is my process, and I'm so glad I'm already at the netting this year compared to last year. So I hope this video was interesting to you and gave you a good idea of how you can grow your own cut flowers as a home gardener, or get started with some beds. Again, I have a lot of resources in the description, and let me know what else you might want to get covered by this series. I'm really excited for the next few episodes, and then for that one, subscribe and watch another video. Thank you.